#1 AI altcoin.
Today, we have a very special guest, Tyree Robinson. He is the head of ecosystems for one of the top projects in the industry, Oraichain.
Welcome to the Bean Pod. This is your place for all things stocks and crypto. From beginner tips to expert picks. Use this as fuel for your investing journey, because when you're in the know, your money will grow.
This episode of the Bean Pod is sponsored by BitGet.
BitGet is the most user-friendly and secure crypto trading platform for both beginners and experienced traders.
BitGet is the best place to not only trade Bitcoin and Ethereum, but also all the small cap gems that we discuss every day.
With 24/7 customer support, leverage trading, and a wide array of other advanced features, BitGet sets itself apart from every other centralized exchange.
Through Beanstalk's official partnership with BitGet, you'll receive 15% off all trading fees when you sign up using the referral link in the description.
All views expressed by speakers on the Bean Pod are solely their opinions. You should not treat any opinion expressed on the Bean Pod as a specific inducement to make a particular investment or follow a specific strategy, but only as an expression of their opinion. This podcast is for informational purposes only.
Welcome to the Bean Pod. This is Shane, aka the Jolly Green Investor.
And this is Josh, the Nifty Investor.
Today, we're going to be talking about one of our favorite top AI altcoins.
Tyree, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys.
Lovely. Listen, alarm bells seem to be ringing everywhere. We have warnings from Elon Musk. We have the godfather of AI, Jeff Dean, warning that the world needs to regulate artificial intelligence immediately. Do you believe that this is all fear-mongering, or are we in immediate danger?
You know, it's an interesting question. Obviously, AI is not new, right? We've had military usage of AI since at least the 80s. I've got friends that were, pilots, F-18 pilots in the 80s, and using AI to be able to communicate with other planes in the air and, make defensive maneuvers. So, AI is just not new. We see a lot of decision making, over the past decades. Anybody that's ever applied for a credit card or applied for a loan, you've already interacted with some sort of automated decision making. The recent fear around artificial intelligence has really been based on this proliferation of LLMs and the concern of, now that retail audiences have this at their fingertips, there's a lot more people concerned that, about the bias and explainability of these systems. So do I think that they're fear-mongering? A little bit. I think that they could have been doing more all along the way to be able to set up the rails to make sure that all of these algorithmic decision-making systems were operating with fairness. But ultimately, I do think that it is a good time to really get something down on paper and to look at this industry as a whole. Ultimately, it's not just about AI. We also need to reinvestigate how we're dealing with data privacy, intellectual property ownership, and it's going to take a whole second look at this entire, internet economy, data economy, in order to really, truly regulate AI in a good way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's almost interesting. There's a lot of parallels that can be drawn between the boom of the internet, decades ago, and how that kind of took everything by storm in a very unregulated way. And then eventually, even we're still seeing now, even, living in Canada here, the regulations for internet are still changing all the time. And some people may agree with how the internet became regulated and is getting regulated. And I think there's going to be a lot of debate on how AI is regulated. It seems to, things are starting to creep in, obviously Web2, Web3, all around different areas. There's regulations starting to creep out in Europe, North America. But, speaking to you, someone that's in the AI industry, you have insider information, you know what's going on. You have your hands on the actual, the technology. What would you say the ideal world? How is AI being regulated in an ideal world, in a perfect scenario, or is there a perfect scenario?
I don't know if there is. I don't know if there's an absolutely perfect scenario, right? It's because what we need to do is be able to really, again, overhaul our privacy laws, take a second look at copyright laws, all of these different elements, and then consider AI rather than trying to sort of paint all AI with one brush and sweep pass sweeping regulation across the entire industry. What we really need to do is look at sort of a case-by-case basis and think about the nuance here. How we regulate ed tech is not going to be the way that we regulate financial technology, and it's not going to be the way that we regulate sort of, your diet, your AI for your diet strategies, right? So, if I was to go right now and say, what does my ideal AI regulation looks like? It looks like a system where people opt in, number one, to sharing their data with AI developers. That's number one. So all of this crawling of the internet to be able to create the source data, I like to call it unfair use, right? But this fair use policies that allow people to just scrape everything from the internet, all of that needs a second look, especially sort of in light of a lot of the lawsuits that we're seeing right now. We have SAG-AFTRA right now, and the Writers Guild in America are on strike, worrying about all of these models that are currently being trained on years and decades of their work to be able to create and then replace their jobs, right? So we ultimately need to look at these things again as sort of human-centric systems. There's no doubt that AI regulation is important as we move towards AGI. I do think that we're a long way away from that yet, where we're really going to see, true AGI out there in the wild. But for what we have right now, especially with sort of the threats to the job markets that exist, we do need to look at sort of how we are rewarding the people, in my opinion, that are contributing the data that makes these systems great.
Yeah, no, it's totally scary from a economic perspective when you start to look at how, all these different jobs can be replaced. And then my mind starts to go down like Terminator and like all that type of stuff.
I think that's kind of like when you talk about how people are scared about
that's
AI,
what I mean.
It's because we ask about fear mongering, right? It's because, the media, obviously they're looking for clicks. They're looking for this viral stuff, and they're feeding people something that may not be a reality or maybe decades off about the potential of what AI can do. But when you're only seeing what you're getting from the big media outlets, I can understand why people are scared. They see a couple of headlines. They see, oh yeah, I've seen Terminator. Is that going to happen in a few years? Is AI going to replace every job and turn against humans and kill everyone? Like, you don't know, right? So
yeah, because when I talk to some of my friends, that's sort of the response I get.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have somebody like Tyree come on the show and actually highlight what actual regulation will look like and how we can, we'll be all right.
Yeah.
There's another angle to this altogether, right? Again, it's not sort of about these AI systems running away. It's also about how individual people use these systems to become more efficient and how that can disrupt the job market, right? I've read plenty of stories where people are now overemployed, where they're able to use AI models to automate large parts of their job and work 3 or 4 or 5, full-time positions with much more efficiency. Now, it sounds crazy, but the problem here is that that equates to 5 people that could be working a full-time job that are qualified that don't have that position, right? And so, it's going to be a very touchy situation, but, things like that are really important. And then, of course, the other is that, we interact with plenty of AI models on a daily basis, right? And none of them are perfect. If you go into ChatGPT and, you try to get it to be biased, it's not very difficult to get it to say some really outlandish things. And that output, it ends up being where we're looking at right now, the opportunity to be able to sort of bring transparency and sort of audit this AI output so that people know the type of product that they're interacting with, rather than just sort of trusting the brand name like the way we do with Coca-Cola or Pepsi, right? OpenAI doesn't automatically fall into, a category where we should automatically trust them after having a product in the market for 6 months.
Yeah, there's so many nuances. I mean, it's tough to kind of put regulation into a box. It seems like it's going to continuously evolve. I believe our audience definitely knows a lot about Oraichain. We've been talking with them on Twitter. We've covered them a few times in our YouTube episodes, in our Discord, etc. And I think there's a lot of people who are familiar with like Fetch AI, SingularityNet, maybe some consumer-facing dApps like Viout, right? But Maybe if you could explain to the listeners, to our audience, like we're 5 years old, what exactly is Oraichain? And what puts you guys to set yourself apart from other AI projects to become the leaders in not only the AI space, but from a regulation perspective?
So whenever somebody says to me, explain it like a 5-year-old, I'll get on my Telegram or Discord chat and say something that goes over their head. And then I have to like work it down and down and down until I get something that really sounds like a 5-year-old would understand it. And I think I finally got it yesterday, right? It's like a sandbox for your toys where you know that your toys are safe. That's what Oraichain is, right? It's a place for developers to come and play and build AI applications that are consumer-facing applications, where you're actually understanding that the individual products and AI models that you're interacting with are transparent and to some degree are safe to interact with, right? And so that is sort of the ultra simplistic version of how I look at our network. We are a layer one for AI infused dApps. The core piece of our infrastructure is our AI Oracle, from which we sort of extract these trustworthy proofs for AI and actually prove that they are reliable and safe to interact with. And from that, we're actually building our aiProof product, which is going to be the reporting mechanism that lives on top of that and provides audit reports for AI models. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. A lot of our technology is chain agnostic. We do think about being multi-chain, multi-platform in every way. So for people that are building products with AI models hosted by Oraichain, it's not only for Web3, it's also for any Web2 product. Currently, with aiProof, we're working on we're auditing all of the big models, right? We're looking at Bard, we're looking at OpenAI, we're studying them, we're creating reports for them, and we're running them through our Oracle to provide these trustworthy proofs and hopefully ultimately empower the consumer to make a better buying decision before choosing blindly to use any AI product.
Yeah, interesting. There's certainly a lot to unpack with Oraichain because whenever we cover it, we tend to take a different angle. Sometimes we focus on the regulation aspect. Sometimes we focus on the layer one, and then as Tyree was just saying, there's also the AI proof. Now, later in this episode, I want to get into the ecosystem, the layer one, and also maybe we can talk a little bit more about AI proofs. But because we kind of started this discussion off with regulation, I just want to ask one more question about regulation, if it's all right. I've definitely started to see over the last maybe 3 months headlines in the USA, North America specifically, start to come out about regulation. So I just wanted to ask you, Tyree, as someone, again, who has probably more knowledge than us or many of the listeners, where would you say the USA is at with AI regulation? And is this something that Oraichain is looking to work with or help them along with, or what's going on there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a lot of friends in Washington where, we've got our ear to the ground constantly. We're typically, I would say that we're pretty far away from getting, AI regulation in any meaningful way in the US. But we do have Chuck Schumer's bill that he's working on right now. We have the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy working on an entire AI strategy right now. And there's also talk that there will be a big push to pass AI regulation in the NDAA, which is the National Defense Authorization Act, at the end of the year. And that'll be the sort of situation where underneath the guise of this military national security bill, they're going to sneak in a bunch of different AI policies, right? So in that case, we wouldn't get a full out AI bill. We would just get some lines in the NDAA that would tell the AI industry what they're able to do or not able to do. Now, regarding our position, I have been a part of a recent request for protocol for the White House, the Office of Science and Technology Policy. I wrote a nice little paper on why they shouldn't ignore blockchain solutions for the AI industry, because ultimately, the internet has evolved and we're still sort of operating. All of these AI companies are sort of operating as if this is 2005, right? Like, it's okay to go and crawl the internet. Like, we don't have a solution to be able to respect individual user sovereignty, all of these different things, right? And actually, Web3 lends a lot of great fundamental technologies to be able to protect sovereignty of data, bring transparency to AI model operations and auditability that are really going to move the needle for a lot of people. And we're not only focusing on the national level, we're also focused on the state level. We've been working with a friend of mine down in Texas with a company called Texans for the Arts. They recently made a proposal to work with us more, officially on Commonwealth, which is our governance platform. But they're really looking to, just for the creative industries, looking to create a really clear outline and framework for what they want policy to look like in the next Texas legislative session, right? And so we're very hands-on with that organization and getting sort of deep into helping them craft an understanding. And, it's politicians are busy, right? Like they're shaking hands, kissing babies, and then also trying to educate themselves on everything in every industry. And it's difficult, right? So people like Texans for the Arts are going to be extremely important for advocating policy positions that are going to affect their industry. And I'm super excited to be, a part of that conversation on the state level as well.
Interesting. I was just thinking about, the combination. We're talking about the White House and AI and regulation. And in general, human society tends to be, and the way the government is reactive. It tends not to be proactive because governments, they move slow and there's a lot of red tape and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just thinking back to, was it 2 elections ago? There was the whole thing that happened with social media and the fake ads and, the tainting of through Facebook, Cambridge Analytica, that whole thing. And I'm just looking down the line here as to a potential catalyst that could really drive home the potential dangers of AI. And because, we talk about AI, but we're in the tech industry. When you kind of talk to people that maybe work in other industries, they've heard of it. They may have heard of ChatGPT, but they're not super, they're not really, really on the ground of what's happening. But when you look down the line, now talking about the White House again, to the next election, don't you feel like there could be some mass AI manipulation of, not only the things you see online, but on TV and headlines and all these, it's fake news, but with AI generated fake people, you don't even know if it's correct. Now, do you think that could maybe potentially be a catalyst as to really bring home what AI, the good and the bad of what AI could potentially do? And then maybe the government will take notice at that point when they screw with whoever these people, these bad actors using AI. That could potentially be, one of the things that really brings AI to the mainstream, so to speak. What do you think?
It's unfortunate that it has to be something that is directly related to politics in order for it to really make a difference and move the needle. But I do think that is one of the driving factors behind this entire situation. Our former president obviously was involved in a lot of sort of election denying situations. People are definitely thinking about how that can be weaponized by foreign actors and people within the country to be able to write new narratives and influence elections. It is absolutely a concern, but there also is another part of the puzzle here, right? Is how the government and how candidates are directly communicating with their constituents, and that really should be what they're focusing on, and less on bad actors coming from the outside and manipulating through social media, right? Ultimately, these politicians could do a better job at talking to the people and speaking for the people more often, rather than sort of, getting on their soapbox in DC and, doing their thing. So that's, and a long and short of it, deepfakes are nothing new, right? My favorite deepfake moment my least favorite deepfake moments are, resurrecting Carrie Fisher in Star Wars and bringing back Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian, right?
Right.
Like, come on, guys, like deepfakes are nothing new. We've got fake Drake records dropping, all of these different things. So, we just have to be aware of it. And, I guess the flip side of the deepfake situation, of course, is that, as much as it can be weaponized, it is also the ability to use AI to sort of clone oneself and be more productive. Is maybe not a downside, right? If people are able to create content, that they stand behind and don't have the time to be doing, dropping 10 records a year or whatever it is. Maybe Drake is out there and, he's got an AI app where you can go and say, hey, I broke up with my girlfriend, write me a song about Janelle. and you know, Drake's got an individual unique song just for you, and
Oh.
you know, the whole world could change, right? So where there's pros, there's cons. I look at it as opportunity across the board.
So whether there's regulation that comes out or not, I mean, I know there's some that came out in the UK, but AI is coming. And something you mentioned previously was this aiProof. Sounds like a product that both Web2 companies and Web3 companies can use. Is this going to be a revenue generator for Oraichain? You mentioned Bard and OpenAI. Are you working behind the scenes with them? Did they approach you? Maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on the significance of this aiProof that you mentioned previously.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take apart the AI pipeline for a quick second, right? We've got people that are dealing with decentralized compute in the space. We've got somebody like BitTensor who's dealing with crowd training in a decentralized way, really great stuff. Akash, Render dealing with decentralized compute. And then we're sort of on the other end of the spectrum where we're, as an Oracle service, dealing with AI generated data and delivering that safely to its final destination, right? And so our focus is looking at that last mile delivery of that data and ensuring that the AI models can be trusted, and thus the data that's coming out and being generated by those AI models is reliable, right? And so that's where our system is sort of built, and then the reporting of that reliability based on speed, security, data privacy, reliability, explainability, bias, all of these different sort of dimensions. That's where we're creating and generating these reports for these different AI models. We're not working directly with OpenAI right now. I think that once we start releasing our audits, we're going to probably have a lot of people being like, whoa, we can do this a lot more efficiently than we were doing it before. Meaning that actually benchmarking these AI models and then creating adversarial tests against those models to try to get them to sort of step out of line, and then go back and retrain and correct them based on that output. I think that all of that is going to create a lot of interest, right? So the process for OpenAI right now for actually testing these models is to actually manually go and get staff members or have educational institutions go out there and do research, right? And so there's a real problem with it where you're dealing with limited throughput for the team, and in some cases, a lack of diversity inside of those trainers and test cases. And so you're not able to necessarily train every single area of a model like ChatGPT, which is a really general purpose LLM, which has a lot of different areas that need to be explored. And so what aiProof does that's really special is that it utilizes collective intelligence, right? Crowdsourced test cases, and is allowed to draw people in from all over the world to participate in both general testing and domain-specific testing for AI models, and create these test cases, which are then randomized and involved in, and then tested against the benchmarks, where you can sort of see the standard deviations against the expected response, right? So that was all a mouthful, but the point for me is that even in the way that we're talking about testing AI models, humans are still involved, right? And there's a big place for people to be involved, which sort of brings me to the revenue, right? So if a company wants to come in and access decentralized test cases, obviously that labor that will be sort of sourced to be a part of that aiProof is going to be paid for, and that will be done with Orai token on mainnet, right? And so this is sort of where that revenue comes in. Obviously, we have some fees that will be paid for aggregating these tests and running these reports, but we really look at it as an opportunity for the world to participate in the AI economy through aiProof.
Yeah, like this is why I try to articulate this to the audience too. Is Oraichain isn't just an altcoin; it's a tech company. Like the fact that you guys can work with both Web2 and Web3 companies, I see the snowball effect occurring when you provide aiProof is fully functional, and you're auditing different companies' AI projects or companies, whatever. And once 2, 3, 4, 5 companies start doing it, and then there's the end consumers, etc. Which company am I going to choose? The one that's been audited or the one that hasn't been? So I'm going to end up, consumers are going to start being, well, this is safe. I'm going to start using this. So all the other companies are going to have to follow suit. They're going to have to start showing, look, we've audited by a verifiable company.
Yeah, and I guess the other piece of this too is that in Web3 right now, our expectation is that smart contracts are audited, right? And that everybody's taking cybersecurity seriously. And we don't see that same attention to detail and transparency around Web3 products that are integrating AI currently, or at least talking about it, right? I do think some projects like BitTensor are really fantastic because they're bringing, a very crowdsourced approach where it's very democratized, and I appreciate that. But there are definitely a lot of people that are, offering AI products and AI functionality where they're literally just using, ChatGPT, OpenAI's model APIs and saying, hey, we run a smart contract auditing company now where you can pay for an AI smart contract audit. Well, can we trust that? Is it the same as going out and hiring somebody like Halborn to do a deep dive and pen test a contract to find every vulnerability, right? It's not, right? So the need for transparency in Web3 has never gone away. We'll always say, don't trust, verify. And from our perspective, we are reintroducing that for AI projects in this space and ultimately enabling the adoption of AI throughout Web3 with the same amount of trust that we've been able to have currently with sort of just standard nuts and bolts smart contracts.
Yeah, that's I mean, AI proofs, if you're part of the Orai, family, if you're just learning about it now, I feel like AI proofs is definitely something to be excited about. We've kind of gone through the regulation, the AI proof, which is, Oraichain's kind of step into that area. But maybe let's shift gears a little bit. And we alluded to the fact that maybe some people don't realize that Oraichain is one of the first AI native layer 1 blockchains. So it's got a whole lot of other stuff going on. There's hackathons, developers, ecosystem projects, all that kind of stuff. So why don't you, Tyree, give us a little bit of an insight, a look into the Orai ecosystem, the layer 1, the AI, and maybe some of the projects that you think are pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably go all day on this, right? Like, this is my baby. But I guess to try to keep it sort of brief, the brief history of Oraichain, right? We started out with the goal of solving how do you bring AI into Web3 in a safe way. One of the first use cases that we came out with was called AI Write. And AI Write was bringing AI functionality into NFT minting smart contracts and checking for asset authenticity in the content, right? So making sure that you can actually respect IP ownership when you have a marketplace minting contract like OpenSea or Rarible or something like that. Now, obviously, sort of from the artistic angle, that is big and exciting in a lot of ways to me, but the implications of that model moving deeper into real world asset tokenization is really huge. When we start talking about uses of identity, like minting your identity on chain, authenticity is really huge. Biometric security, authenticity is really huge, right? And so this is one of the best ways that I think that in the early days we sort of established the value of bringing AI into smart contracts. And this is 2021. AI was not hyped, right? Everybody was telling us at the time, blockchain doesn't need AI, and we've seen them change their tune quite dramatically in the past 8 months, right? So where we are now, it's kind of a no-brainer. The other great thing that AI Write product did was also we have a patent on the ability to create you can't call it a copyright, but the ability to essentially create the foundation for a copyright for AI generated content. So for anybody that has tuned into any of the Senate judiciary meetings in the past couple months or followed anything coming out of the district courts, they continue in the US, they continue to sort of sing the same song where they say, AI generated content has not been created in a human mind. There's not significant contribution and authorship from humans. And so it can't be awarded copyright. In a lot of ways, we fundamentally disagree with that because the participation is not just the computer. human data has been a part of that authorship, where 1 million humans have contributed data to train that AI model. The AI model developer has contributed to that authorship, building and training this algorithm. And then beyond that, there is a human input, right? That prompt engineer who's looking for a job right now, their work should be valued as well, right? So the beauty of blockchain is that it can memorialize all of this sort of cap table for your AI generated output on chain. And that's what our patent on AI Right is really all about, right? Is being able to crystallize the ownership of AI generated output and open the door for licensing and commercialization of AI generated works. So long story short, AI Right, super excited about that one. One of our earliest projects in the ecosystem. It's getting a big revamp soon, and it's going to be relaunched again in sometime in September, probably around token 2049. Sort of fast forwarding ahead, in the DeFi world, we've got a bunch of really awesome things that I look forward to. Obviously, we've got our DEX, we've got an AI lending platform. One really fun thing about our DEX that we have coming up right now is AI trading strategies, which is going to allow individual people to participate as market makers on an order book platform. So if anybody's familiar with sort of GSR or any of these big market maker players, right, that they sort of run the volume on the markets, right? They are contributing a lot to that bottom line, and they're very profitable businesses. And we don't see any reason in the decentralized world where individual consumers shouldn't be able to access these highly sophisticated quant strategies and market making strategies, and be able to actually take advantage of these opportunities, at the same time creating liquidity inside of our DeFi products. So really excited about that.
We talked about we've shared on our social media recently that you started to have some new projects launch on the native Orai chain. Was it Oraichain was one of the ones that happened recently? And I guess the difference between that and maybe some of the other ones is that it actually launched on the Orai chain as opposed to being bridged over or something like that. So maybe can you speak a bit about that?
Yeah, Oraichain is really exciting to me, right? So that's the AI-based lending platform where I mentioned. So it started out being a liquid staking platform that was using AI to be able to win. So, short story, guys, liquid staking is when you're able to delegate to the network, and, ultimately you're getting a derivative, which is liquid, and you can trade it, right?
Yeah, we've talked about liquid stake derivatives a bunch on this show. It's something that we really like the idea of, for sure.
So basically there's an AI model at the door where you liquid stake, and it's delegating to validators in the network based on voting power, performance, and all of those things. And it's sort of randomized. So you're getting exposure to multiple validators. You're not liquid staking just to one node. And that was really exciting in the beginning. People are able to use their staked Orai tokens, staked Atom, staked Osmo as collateral to borrow USDT. And this is a project that came out of one of our earlier hackathons, and joined our accelerator program. And in the past year and a half, they've really blossomed, and what they've done is really impressive. So where they're heading now is a DeFi orchestrator, which is going to be a cross-chain platform that uses contract accounts or account abstraction to be able to actually streamline all of your cross-chain DeFi interactions into one click, right? So if you imagine I'm a user, I come onto the platform, I want to buy Orai, I want to stake Orai, I want to use my liquid staked Orai as collateral, I want to borrow against it, and then I want to go trade it and then deposit liquidity. You can go and create that recipe and use AI trading strategies in there. Maybe you even have some cross-chain interactions there, and you can execute it in one click through a product called your Smart Wallet, which is directly attached to your main wallet. So all of that's really dope. There is an airdrop for that product right now for Cosmos holders, Injective holders, Kava holders. I'm probably forgetting one I think Osmosis as well. I think the snapshot was already happened for Orai holders, right. But cool. Definitely check out Oraichain.
Hell yeah, that sounds like there's a lot of really cool things happening in the ecosystem. You yourself, you sound super well connected, with your people you're working with in Washington and all that. And it's not what you know sometimes as much as it is who you know. I believe there were some partnerships, maybe like Syscoin. I think there were some integrations, maybe Ocean. I think there's like an first RVFs on Avalanche and Phantom. I know there's some work with Tron in terms of the $100 million AI development fund that's there. Maybe you could allude to a little bit of the success of some of these partnerships and how they're helping the ecosystem grow, and maybe highlight one or two that you believe are the most significant.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think you mentioned a bunch right now. Earlier in the call, you mentioned Viat. Viat was also one of our earliest partners as well. Like right when they launched, they used to be a validator on our network. Aster Protocol, we also provided some price feeds over there. But really the partnerships that I'm most excited about right now, number one is Tron. A lot of people sleep on Tron. A lot of people, have personal feelings about Tron based on sort of the things that have happened, global events, and regulation actions and all that. But knowing the Tron team and getting involved with them, this is one of the hardest working teams, one of the most humble teams that you'll ever meet. Look, this is a top 10 project. They're accessible, and they're really passionate about supporting developers. Twice this year they've done hackathons for $500,000 prize pools, which is just giving developers an opportunity to earn and build and experiment with their stack. Our relationship, we were a host on their previous hackathon. We're currently partners on their upcoming hackathon. They're also going to participate in our upcoming hackathon. So we're really excited about that. We would love to make sure, I think there's been some confusion recently about sort of the $100 million AI fund. We are definitely here to help seed as many projects for investment to Tron as possible. But just to clear the air, like we have not taken any money from Tron, right? That's not like $100 million investment into Oraichain. But we're always happy to go out there and make introductions and make sure that good AI projects, especially ones that are building cross ecosystem between Oraichain and Tron, are able to access that capital that's available for people developing right now. And again, we're really close partners and really excited about that. One of the other new partners that I'm really, really excited about is Andromeda. Andromeda Protocol is a sort of, they're a brand new product coming out of the Cosmos ecosystem, and they're a multi-chain operating system that's allowing you to build smart contract dApps with low code, right? So think Bubble or something like that, where you're dragging and dropping different elements to build your dApp. But now you can actually do that, through Andromeda. Soon you're going to be able to launch your app on Oraichain and Terra and Say Network and Secret Network all at the same time, right? And so I've said a lot sort of on our calls recently that Andromeda is going to take our developer activity, 10x at least in the next year, because what that does is it allows developers within the community to have a tool that's super accessible and familiar to them, and it's going to allow them to go to market with their products really quickly. So that is really exciting to me. And then, again, just sort of in talking about the developer experience, we, in the past, we've been really focused on sort of building a lot of products ourselves in-house, sort of as proof of concept to get the network up and running. But we recently have really changed the dynamic, right? So we recently did a restructure of our tokenomics that reallocated the team's allocation and the advisor's allocation to the DAO treasury. And we're really looking to fund or promote the community, or encourage the community to fund projects that they believe in and steer the direction of the network in the future. And a big part of that is Dora Hacks. For those that aren't familiar with Dora Hacks, they are a hackathon hosting platform. We're close partners, and they're starting a grant DAO on Oraichain and hosting our upcoming hackathon. Now, this is a community with 60,000 monthly active developers, right? So being able to go out there and work with these guys and have direct access to their developer community is extremely exciting for us. And also making sure that sort of, that long runway funding is available through the DAO is all part of sort of our success strategy moving forward into the next year, in 2 years, and 5 years, right? Making sure that there are resources for our developers no matter where they're coming from.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, that tokenomics thing that we pushed out to our community, everyone's pretty happy to hear that. When Josh and I do kind of deep dives on projects, we always we kind of have a list of tick boxes that we go through. So for Orai, even just in this interview, we've talked about the real world use case, which would be aiProof. We've talked about the ecosystem. We've talked about, the team, the background, all that kind of stuff. So the next question would be, and we've alluded to this earlier, but maybe if you could give us a little bit more of an insight, is what is the utility of the actual Orai token? Like, how is it built into the ecosystem? What are the different things that can be done with the Orai token specifically?
First and foremost, it is used to secure the network, right? Delegating to the network, being a part of that voting power, ensuring that all of our validators have a reasonable amount of voting power, and that it's distributed and decentralized. That's sort of number one. Obviously, for that, everybody participates in both sharing transaction fees, revenue sharing, real yield, whatever you'd like to call it, and also block rewards throughout the duration of our inflation period. Currently, our inflation is set to end early 2027, at which point we will be pivoting to only transaction fees, right? So at some point, that inflation will stop and only transaction fees will sort of be used to pay out that validator yield. And I think that that's really important to understand. So that's one core use case for the Orai token. The other core use case is obviously paying for AI services, paying for data sets, and making sure that that execution, those fees, as I mentioned earlier with aiProof, paying for those test cases for your aiProof reports, all of those things are really important. Now, as we jump over, we also have DeFi, right? So within the Oraichain ecosystem, we've got our DEX, we've got liquidity pools that have a very healthy amount of tokens locked up in those liquidity pools right now. So that is also a utility of the token that's very prevalent in the ecosystem. And then sort of to talk about, what makes Oraichain special, right? So in the broad Web3 ecosystem, we always see a lot of DeFi. And one of the special things about Oraichain is that there are a lot of apps that they focus on real world use cases, right? We've got a dating app right now that's building. We've got real world asset tokenization, real estate app that's building right now. We've got a data sharing app for financial data and quant trading, right? All of these things are, really going to increase the demand for block space on Orai, which of course will, translate to more demand for the token, right? If you think about it, a Web3 product that has 50,000 monthly active users, is pretty good. Everybody's really stoked on that, right? But if your dating app had 50,000 monthly active users, you might be a little bummed, right? Because there's 8 billion people on Earth looking for love.
Right.
So when you have, a seemingly benign use case like a dating app that now has mainstream appeal, something like Cupid could easily reach 1 million users, and they're still going to need Orai for transaction fees. And that's still going to bring demand for block space, right? So all of these things really do play into the ultimate utility of Orai long term.
I like it. There's a lot going on between the aiProofs, the different dApps that are being built behind the scenes. It's really nice to get some insight into what's happening in the ecosystem, what's going on behind the scenes. You mentioned AI Oracle earlier. I'm sure there's some Chainlink listeners watching right now, and they're like, well, why don't you just use Chainlink? Maybe you could give us some insight into what the difference is between Chainlink as an Oracle and what you guys provide.
Yeah, absolutely. So Chainlink is, I like to think of all these things as sort of checkpointing, right? So you've got these guardians who are checkpointing off-chain data and they're bringing it on chain. So, Chainlink is dealing with sort of price feeds, gambling data, prediction data, lots of different things like that. Those are all sort of being reported from these static sources. When you're dealing with bringing AI generated data on chain, a different infrastructure is needed, and it's far more complicated than sort of aggregating and weighting responses from a bunch of different static data sources, right? And so, the idea is still very novel in the space. You'll notice that there's almost nobody that's, competing to do an AI oracle because they don't quite understand, the value of it yet. When we start to talk about bringing biometric security into a smart contract, that's an AI oracle that's feeding AI generated through API. Now you need to make sure that that oracle is, or that AI model is not off the rails, right? You need to make sure that that AI model is actually behaving the way that it's promised. So this is really where our system is unique, right? Is that we're aggregating decentralized test cases, sort of surveillance of these black box AI models, and then validating that on chain, creating an on-chain trustworthy proof before delivering that data to the end user smart contract or Web2 application. Obviously, price feeds are a thing that can be done, but is it the most fun? I don't think so. Price feeds are awesome. We've definitely got price feeds, but that's not the thing that excites me. When we start to talk about biometric security, predictions markets, things like these things really open the door to new opportunities. So yeah, that's the AI oracle in a nutshell. It's not like any of your grandma's oracles. It is definitely something fresh. And I think that that's all going to be really clear to people in the coming months as we have some of these really, advanced projects roll out, like Oraichain, right? If you start bringing AI data in for trading strategies and cross-chain transactions, you're going to want to make sure that that's working exactly the way you want, right? You don't just want it to be sort of chain link keepers taking care of you. You want control. Right. And so that's the moral of the story there. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Well, I mean, look, there's certainly a lot to unpack here, and we've kind of gone through every part of Orai that we wanted to cover today, but maybe, speak to the Orai community, speak to new people that maybe don't know what Orai is, and just hype us up a little bit here. Tell us what we can expect from Orai, from Oraichain for the remainder of 2023, some milestones, some goals in your roadmap that you really want people to learn about.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously aiProof, that is going to drop very soon. We're going to unveil that, the initial reports sometime in September, very likely at Token 2049. No promises there, but that's going to be very big, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with the world and inviting many AI projects to sort of onboard with us in the early phases and sort of get that well populated. And also that's going to be an opportunity for a lot of people to participate in the community as well in this testing, earn revenue, right? So that's really exciting for me. AI Right, as I mentioned earlier, getting a fresh relaunch. So for anybody that's sort of familiar with using Midjourney or Stability AI or any of these things, right? You go out there and you pay a subscription, $30 to $50 a month for any one of these individual applications. You may not love it, but you're stuck with it for the month, right? AI Right is getting a whole revamp right now that's actually going to aggregate all of the top AI models to one platform, pay as you go, with your trustworthy proofs, and on top of that, on-chain licensing and watermarking for AI generated content. And so that's going to be super hype, and it's going to be a game changer in the market. I think that rather than people going out and picking and choosing AI models randomly, this will now be a place where anybody that's interested in AI generated content, whether that's image, video, music, 3D models, graphic design, and interior design, all of those models are now going to live on the same platform where you can use them as you please, right? And that's going to be really exciting for me as well. On the DeFi front, there's, again, you guys are going to open up a can of worms with me because I can just talk all day. But look, the last big thing for me that I will mention here is that, on our DeFi front for our DEX, we're really going to be pushing into what we like to call a CDeFi direction in the next few months, which means futures will be available on Oraichain. We are opening our direct to Bitcoin bridge, which is going to allow Bitcoin liquidity to come into Oraichain as well. Have those trading options available for futures and on our order book, and that's going to be really big. And like I mentioned earlier, the market making, don't underestimate that, right? We all sit here and have to deal with trading against the market makers all the time. Imagine being the market maker, right? And really being able to participate in that. So that's really exciting for me as well.
I'm hype.
Yeah, for sure.
It's so lovely to have you on the show, Tyree. You've explained AI, the regulations, how important these trustworthy proofs are 1,000 times better than I think at least myself. I don't know. Shane's a very well-spoken individual, but
that was good.
Appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks so much. Look, audience, guys, if there's anything more that you want to learn about AI, if there's anything that you love about Oraichain and things that you're looking forward to, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, for sure. That was an awesome episode. We're definitely, I'd say we might even have to have you on again at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Tyree.
I appreciate your time, guys. Like, this has been an awesome talk, and everybody follow Oraichain. And if you're watching this video right now and you're not following these guys, then you're making a big mistake, because I'm a big fan.
There you go.
Absolutely. We'd love to hear it. Thanks so much. Hey guys, make sure you tune to the next episode.
That one is going to be a banger.
All views expressed by speakers on the BeanPod are solely their opinions. You should not treat any opinion expressed on the BeanPod as a specific inducement to make a particular investment or follow a specific strategy, but only as an expression of their opinion. This podcast is for informational purposes only.